Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel today. We're counting down the 5 Kennedy half-dollar coins you need to see. From rare mint errors to stunning large date varieties, these coins are some of the most valuable and sought-after pieces in modern U.S. coin collecting. Stick around to discover which Kennedy half-dollars could be hiding incredible value right in your collection. First coin, the 1973 Kennedy half-dollar large date variety with no visible mint mark, a coin that most people ignore in pocket change condition, but under the right circumstances has shocked collectors with auction results climbing as high as $130,000. Yes, you heard that right. A 1973 Kennedy half-dollar, even in circulated scratched and worn condition, has become the center of attention in the rare coin market. And in this video, we are going to break down why this coin can command such an incredible price and what makes it so special. The Kennedy half-dollar series began in 1964, shortly after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The coin quickly became one of the most collected modern U.S. coins, not only because of its historical significance, but also because of its beautiful design created by Gilroy Roberts on the obverse and Frank Gasparo on the reverse. By 1973, the series was already well established, but most collectors believe coins from the 1970s are common and not worth much above face value. That assumption is exactly why some rare varieties slip through unnoticed for years. The 1973 Kennedy half-dollar was struck at the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Coins from Philadelphia during that time typically carried no mint mark, while Denver issues displayed a D mint mark. When we talk about a 1973 large date with no mint mark, we are usually referring to a Philadelphia issue. However, what separates an ordinary coin worth only 50 cents from one that can bring 6 figures at auction is not just the date or the absence of a mint mark, but a specific large date variety, combined with rare die characteristics and extreme scarcity in certain collectible conditions. The large date variety features noticeably thicker and slightly taller numerals in the date compared to the standard small date version. The 1 in 1973 appears stronger and more upright, the 9 has a more pronounced loop, and the 7 and 3 are bolder and easier to distinguish even with wear. For the average person, the difference may look minor, especially on a circulated coin with scratches and heavy handling marks. But for experienced collectors and grading experts, these small details can mean the difference between a common piece and a legendary rarity. Now let's talk about condition, because this is where things get really interesting. Normally, a 1973 Kennedy half-dollar in circulated scratched bad condition is only worth face value, or perhaps $1 or $2 to a beginner collector. These coins were made in the millions, and most were heavily used in commerce during the 1970s. You will often see examples with dull surfaces, multiple scratches, rim nicks, and faded luster. However, in extremely rare cases, certain coins show unusual die errors, dramatic double dies, or were struck from experimental dies that were never meant for full circulation. When one of these rare large date error varieties surfaces, even if it has circulation wear, collectors compete aggressively to own it. In today's auction market, certified examples of rare 1973 large date varieties with unique die errors have reached astonishing prices. One particularly famous example, authenticated and graded by a major third-party grading service, stunned the numismatic world when it sold for approximately $130,000 at a high-profile auction. What made that coin special was a combination of the large date variety, strong die doubling visible on Kennedy's profile and lettering, and documented provenance, linking it to an early mint error discovery. Even though the coin showed circulation marks and visible scratches, the rarity of the die variety made condition less important than authenticity and uniqueness. Collectors are willing to pay extraordinary amounts when a coin represents a missing link in mint history. In the case of the 1973 Kennedy half-dollar large date without mint mark, some specialists believe a very small batch was struck using a transitional die or an experimental hub that was later replaced. If only a handful survive, the law of supply and demand drives prices upward dramatically. When two determined bidders compete at auction, the final hammer price can exceed expectations very quickly. It is also important to understand the role of grading. If you believe you have a 1973 large date Kennedy half-dollar with unusual characteristics, never attempt to clean it. Cleaning can reduce the value instantly. Instead, send the coin to a reputable grading service for professional evaluation. Authentication is critical because the difference between a normal large date coin and a rare double die or experimental strike can be subtle. Experts examine the coin under magnification, verify the die markers, and assign an official grade that establishes credibility in the marketplace. Another factor influencing value is market timing. Over the past decade, interest in modern rare varieties has increased significantly. Younger collectors are searching for overlooked treasures from the 1960s and 1970s. Social media and online auctions have expanded the audience dramatically. When a rare coin becomes widely discussed, demand increases and record prices follow. The $130,000 sale reflects not only rarity, but also strong collector enthusiasm and competitive bidding conditions. You might be wondering, can an ordinary circulated scratched 1973 Kennedy half-dollar really be worth that much? The honest answer is that the vast majority are not. Most examples in bad condition remain worth only face value. However, the rare large date error variety proves that even modern coins can hide extraordinary value. The key is identifying the correct diagnostics. Look closely at the thickness of the date numerals. Examine the lettering for doubling, inspect Kennedy's hair and profile for unusual die characteristics, and compare your coin to verified auction records. Stories like this capture the imagination of collectors around the world. The idea that a coin sitting unnoticed in a drawer for decades could potentially be worth $130,000 creates excitement and motivates people to check their change carefully. While the odds are slim, the possibility is real, and that is part of what makes coin collecting so fascinating. In conclusion, the 1973 Kennedy half-dollar large date with no mint mark stands as a reminder that rarity is not always obvious. Even a circulated, scratched, and worn coin can become a six-figure treasure if it carries the right combination of variety, documented authenticity, and collector demand. If you own Kennedy half-dollars from the 1970s, take the time to inspect them closely. You never know when a small detail in the date could transform an ordinary 50-cent piece into one of the most talked-about auction coins in modern numismatic history. Next coin, the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar, the large date variety with no mint mark, in circulated but fine condition, and a market value that has recently surged near an unbelievable $170,000. Yes, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars for a coin that most people assume is common and worth only 50 cents. In this video, I'll break down exactly what makes this coin so rare, how to identify it, and why even a circulated, visibly worn example can command such a staggering price in today's rare coin market. Most coin collectors are familiar with the standard Kennedy half-dollar series. First issued in 1964, just after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, the Kennedy half quickly became one of the most popular and widely collected U.S. coins. Designed by Gilroy Roberts and Frank Gasparo, these coins have a timeless look, and for decades they circulated all across America. By the early 1970s, millions of these coins were minted, and many ended up in pocket change, piggy banks, and coin rolls. Because these later Kennedy halves are so plentiful, it's easy to assume there's nothing special about them. But that assumption has cost some people a fortune. The 1972 Kennedy half-dollar was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Most Philadelphia pieces from that year have no mint mark. Denver issues carry the familiar D mint mark. Typically, these coins are common and worth only face value to a few dollars in circulated condition. However, among the 1972 Philadelphia strikes, there exists a rare large date variety that numismatists have identified as one of the most valuable modern era or variety coins. It's not just the large date that makes it rare. It's the specific characteristics of the die and the fact that very few of these coins have survived in collectible condition. The large date variety is characterized by noticeable differences in the numerals of the date. On the large date, the 1 is taller and more open at the top, the 9 and 7 are bolder and fuller, and the 2 has a distinct shape that stands apart from the more common small date version. These differences are subtle to the untrained eye, but for collectors who specialize in modern varieties, they are immediately recognizable. For decades, these small details were overlooked by casual collectors, and many of these rare large date coins remained in circulation, worn and scratched. Condition plays a major role in the value of most coins. For most collectors, a coin in circulated and scratched condition is far less valuable than one in mint state or uncirculated condition. Yet with this particular 1972 large date half-dollar, even specimens in fine circulated condition have brought extraordinary prices at auction. Why? The answer comes down to scarcity. While millions of ordinary 1972 Kennedy half-dollars were struck, only a tiny number of large date Philadelphia strikes with the correct die characteristics are known to exist. And of those that do exist, even fewer have survived in higher grade. One of the most remarkable recent sales involved a fine condition 1972 large date Kennedy half-dollar with no mint mark that sold for approximately $170,000 at a major auction. This sale stunned many collectors and dealers because the coin clearly showed signs of wear, light scratches, softened details, and the typical wear patterns of a coin that circulated for many years. Most coins with that type of wear sell for little more than face value. But in this case, collectors recognized that the rarity of the variety outweighed the condition issues. Even in circulated and fine condition, the coin represented one of the rarest modern U.S. half-dollars. Certified examples of this variety are extremely few, and each time one comes to market, there is intense competition among advanced collectors and specialty dealers. The value of $170,000 reflects not just rarity, but the willingness of serious collectors to pay top dollar for a piece of numismatic history. It also reflects the power of certification. When a coin like this is authenticated and graded by a leading third-party grading service, it gives buyers confidence that the piece is genuine and accurately described. That confidence fuels bidding wars and elevates prices. If you're wondering how a circulated, scratched coin could be worth so much, consider this. In the world of rare coins, rarity almost always trumps condition. There are many examples throughout history of worn, damaged, or imperfect coins selling for record prices, simply because so few exist at any grade. The 1972 large date Kennedy half-dollar with no mint mark has become one of those coins. For years it was overlooked. Many collectors didn't even know it existed. It wasn't listed in some older reference books. But once a few examples were discovered, documented, and entered into the marketplace, collectors began to realize just how rare it was. Now, let's talk about identification. If you think you might have one of these coins, don't rely on a quick glance. The differences between the large date and small date are subtle. You need to look carefully at the shape and thickness of the numerals in the date. Compare your coin to reference images from reputable sources. Look at the height of the 1, the width of the 9, and the curvature of the 2. On genuine large date specimens, These features will be distinct. If you find a coin that matches these characteristics, do not clean it. Cleaning can destroy surface detail and severely reduce value. Instead, submit it to a major grading service for authentication and grading. Another thing collectors should know is that provenance can matter. Coins with a documented history, especially those connected to early discoveries or notable collections, can command even higher prices. In the case of the $170,000 sale, the provenance and grading pedigree of the coin played a role in driving up the final auction price. Collectors were not just buying a rare variety. They were buying a piece of numismatic lore with a verified backstory. Market trends also play a big part. Over the past decade, demand for modern rarity coins has grown dramatically. Collectors have shifted focus from older classic coins to modern issues with unusual varieties, errors, and low survival rates. Online auctions and social media have amplified awareness of rare coins. When one example sells for a high price, it signals to the collector community that the variety is valuable and interest spikes. That renewed interest tends to push prices even higher. For those who collect casually, this might all sound unbelievable. How could a 1972 half-dollar possibly be worth $170,000? But anyone who has followed rare coin auctions knows that the market can be unpredictable, and rarity often trumps popularity. Coins like the 1972 large date, with no mint mark, are rare by definition. They were struck in very limited numbers, possibly due to an experimental die, a transitional hub, or a mint error, and most never made it into collections. Instead, they were lost in circulation, only to resurface decades later in unexpected places. Next coin, the 1985 Kennedy half-dollar with a large error date and a Denver mint mark, a coin that has become one of the most expensive modern United States half-dollars ever sold. This isn't a common coin worth a few dollars, and this isn't a story about uncirculated mint state examples. This is a true rarity, an error coin that defied all odds and made numismatic history. Most people know the Kennedy half-dollar as a familiar American coin that has been around since 1964. It was introduced shortly after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, and its iconic design quickly became beloved by collectors and the general public alike. By the time we reached 1985, millions of these coins had been struck and used in everyday transactions all across the United States. Most 1985 Kennedy half-dollars you find in pocket change or coin rolls today are common and worth only face value or a small premium at best. But hidden among those millions of pieces was a very rare anomaly, a dramatic die error that produced a large date variation with unusual characteristics that were never intended by the U.S. Mint. In the world of coins, an error can mean many things: doubled dies, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks. But this 1985 Denver coin's error was unique in its own way. The date on this coin is significantly larger and bolder than a normal 1985 half-dollar, and the spacing and placement of the numerals stand out so dramatically that once you see one, you never forget it. Most casual collectors would simply glance at this coin, notice the Denver D mint mark, see where from circulation, and think it was just another half-dollar. But those who paused, studied it closely, and compared it to standard examples began to realize that something exceptional was happening here. Let me be clear, the vast majority of 1985 Kennedy half-dollars are completely ordinary. They were minted for circulation in enormous numbers, and most of them never left pocket change. But what makes this particular 1985 D large error date so valuable is its rarity. Very few of these error coins were ever produced, and even fewer have survived to the present day. Most were likely lost, spent, melted, or discarded long before collectors ever knew to look for them. The ones that remain are treasures, testaments to the mysteries that can still exist in modern coinage. What really separates this coin from other collectible error coins is that buyers were willing to pay $260,000 for one that was not in mint state, not perfectly struck, and not free from wear. In fact, the coin that sold for that record price showed clear signs of circulation, scratches from years of use, and a surface that would be considered fine, at best by standard grading definitions. Normally, condition is one of the biggest factors in a coin's value. Pristine, uncirculated coins almost always command the highest prices. But in this remarkable case, rarity and historical significance completely trumped condition. The story of this $260,000 auction began when a collector stumbled upon what appeared to be an ordinary 1985 D. Kennedy half-dollar in a local coin shop. At first glance, it looked worn, dull, and scratched, the kind of coin most people wouldn't give a second thought to. But the collector noticed something unusual about the date. The numerals looked larger, bolder, and differently spaced than on normal examples. Curious, he compared it to reference images and other coins in his collection. What he discovered would change his life. Realizing he might have something rare, the collector submitted the coin to a major third-party grading service for authentication. When the results came back, the coin was confirmed not only as a genuine 1985 Kennedy half-dollar from the Denver Mint, but also as an authentic large error date variety, a variety that had only ever been documented in a small handful of pieces. This official authentication gave the coin legitimacy and sparked interest among serious collectors around the world. In competitive bidding, interest grew rapidly. Collectors with deep knowledge of modern U.S. errors recognized that this piece was not just rare, it was practically unique. The Denver Mint mark added another layer of intrigue, because Denver coins are typically plentiful. Yet here was a Denver half-dollar with a die error that seemed to appear in only a few surviving examples. Bidding quickly escalated, fueled by collectors who understood both the rarity and the story behind this unusual coin. What started as curiosity turned into a full-blown bidding war, and when the hammer finally fell, the price was a staggering $260,000. This auction result sent shockwaves through the numismatic community. Many collectors had assumed that modern coins from the 1980s could not possibly be worth such amounts, especially not in circulated grades. But the sale proved something important. Rarity and story can outweigh age and condition in the eyes of the market. A coin doesn't have to be precious metal, old, or flawless to be valuable. It has to be rare, authentic, and highly sought after. The market today continues to support high prices for rare and unusual coins like this 1985 D. Kennedy half-dollar large error date. Even in circulated fine condition, examples that are confirmed and authenticated can sell for astonishing amounts. Collectors pursue them with passion, and when one appears at auction, competition is fierce. Dealers and advanced collectors alike are willing to invest significant sums because they know that these rare varieties rarely come to market, and when they do, they attract global attention. If you ever come across Kennedy half-dollars from the mid-1980s, it pays to look closely. Many collectors overlook modern coins simply because they assume there's nothing remarkable about them. But every so often, pieces like this 1985 large error date with a Denver Mint mark surface to remind us that treasure can be hiding in the most unexpected places, even in coins that have been in circulation for decades. The key is knowing what to look for and having the patience to research and compare. So what should you do if you think you found one of these rare coins? First, do not clean the coin. Cleaning can remove original surface detail and severely reduce its value. Instead, compare the date closely to known examples, look at reference materials from reputable numismatic sources, and consider submitting the coin to an experienced grading service for authentication. If it truly is a large error date, professional certification can dramatically increase both market confidence and eventual sale price. Next coin, the 1983 Kennedy half-dollar with a large error date and a Philadelphia mint mark. A coin that, despite being circulated, scratched, and only in fine condition, made waves in the auction world with a value around $140,000. Most people think of 1980s half-dollars as common pocket change, but this particular piece has become one of the most talked about modern rarities in the hobby. In this video, I'll take you step by step through what makes this coin so rare, how to identify it, why condition didn't stop it from bringing an astonishing price, and what this means for collectors today. The Kennedy half-dollar series has been part of American coinage since 1964. It was introduced as a tribute to President John F. Kennedy shortly after his assassination, and the design quickly became one of the most recognizable and beloved in modern U.S. numismatics. By the early 1980s, these coins were everywhere, used in everyday transactions, collected in change jars, and often forgotten in rolls or drawers. In 1983 alone, millions of Kennedy half-dollars were minted at the Philadelphia facility, all bearing the familiar profile of President Kennedy on the obverse and the presidential coat of arms on the reverse. Under normal circumstances, a 1983 P. Kennedy half-dollar in circulated condition is worth no more than 50 cents to a few dollars, depending on wear and eye appeal. However, hidden among those millions of ordinary coins exists a truly extraordinary variation, the large error date. Now let's talk about what we mean by a large error date. When the United States Mint manufactures coins, the dies that strike the design are created through a series of steps involving hubs and presses. Sometimes errors or variations slip into this process. If a die is made with slightly different dimensions for the date numerals, or if a hubbing step accidentally doubles up or alters the date numerals in a unique way, coins struck from that die will show unusual characteristics. In the case of the 1983 P large error date Kennedy half-dollar, the numerals comprising the date, the 1, 9, 8, and 3, are noticeably larger, bolder, and differently proportioned compared to the standard issue. These differences are subtle at first glance, but once you see side-by-side comparisons with normal examples, they become unmistakable. What sets this coin apart is not just the large date itself, but the combination of rarity and survivability. Very few coins with this error were ever produced, and even fewer survived the decades in any collectible condition. Most likely, the altered die was used for only a brief period before it was discovered and replaced, meaning only a small batch of error coins entered circulation. Over the years, most of these coins were spent, lost, or melted down like ordinary change. The ones that survived did so by chance, ending up in collections, coin jars, or forgotten drawers, until one day they resurfaced and caught the attention of a knowledgeable collector. This unbelievable story began when a collector in the Midwest was sorting through a batch of old half-dollars he had purchased from an estate sale. Among the worn and scratched coins, one particular 1983 P half-dollar caught his eye. At first glance, it looked beaten and ordinary, with clear signs of circulation wear, scratches, softened rims, and faded devices. But something about the date looked different. The numerals appeared larger and more pronounced than what he remembered seeing on standard examples. Intrigued, he pulled out a magnifying glass and began comparing it to reference photos he found online. The more he examined it, the more convinced he became that he was looking at something rare. Instead of cleaning the coin or tossing it aside, he did the right thing. He sent it to a reputable third-party grading service for authentication. This is a critical step for any coin you suspect might be rare. Cleaning or polishing a coin, even gently, can destroy important surface detail and drastically reduce its value. But by submitting the coin in its current condition, the collector preserved the original surfaces and allowed experts to study the die characteristics accurately. When the grading service returned the results, The news was astounding. The coin was confirmed as a genuine 1983 P. Kennedy half-dollar with a large error date variety, a piece that had very few confirmed survivors. The grading service documented the enlarged date numerals, compared them to standard reference markers, and verified that this die variety was authentic and extremely scarce. This official certification was the turning point. It transformed an old worn half-dollar into a rare numismatic treasure. Word began to spread quickly among the collector community. Specialists in modern U.S. coin varieties took notice, and interest in the piece grew rapidly. When the coin was consigned to a major auction house, collectors from around the world registered to bid. What happened next was unprecedented. Despite the coin being circulated with visible scratches and only a fine condition grade, the bidding climbed higher and higher. Serious collectors understood that true rarity often outweighs condition, especially when there are so few examples known to exist. By the time the hammer fell, the final price realized was approximately $140,000, a figure that stunned even the most seasoned numismatists. This sale sent shockwaves through the hobby. Many people had long believed that modern coins, especially from the 1980s, could never achieve high prices unless they were in mint state or perfect condition. But this coin proved otherwise. The value wasn't driven by age or precious metal content. It was driven by rarity, documented authenticity, and collector demand. The fact that the coin was in circulated, scratched condition did not deter serious bidders, because examples in higher grades are virtually non-existent. When supply is so limited, even coins with wear can command extraordinary prices. So, why did collectors feel this coin was worth so much? There are a few key reasons. First, the large error date variety is extremely rare. Modern coin production error coins are often caught and removed before entering circulation, and when they do escape, they usually surface in tiny numbers. Second, third-party certification gave buyers confidence that the coin was authentic and accurately described. In the rare coin market, certified examples always bring stronger demand and higher prices because buyers know exactly what they are purchasing. Third, the story behind the coin added to its mystique. Collectors love narratives. A precious piece discovered in everyday change, hidden for decades, and then suddenly brought to light with a stunning result. If you're a collector or someone who enjoys sorting through old coins, this story should inspire you to take a closer look at your own stash. While the odds of finding a coin as rare as this are incredibly slim, the possibility that a seemingly ordinary coin could hide something extraordinary is part of the excitement of numismatics. Always research unusual features, compare coins to reliable references, and if you think you might have something rare, seek expert opinions before making decisions. Next coin, the 1996 P. Kennedy half-dollar, the large date with a Philadelphia mint mark, a coin that has shocked collectors with sales reportedly as high as $110,000. This isn't common knowledge, and most people wouldn't believe that a coin from the 1990s could ever be worth anything more than face value. But that's exactly what makes this story so intriguing. The 1996 Kennedy half-dollar wasn't originally intended to be rare. The United States Mint struck more than 24 million of these coins at the Philadelphia facility, all meant for everyday circulation in American commerce. At the time, collectors and casual savers alike regarded these coins as fairly ordinary. In circulated grades, even fine or very fine, these coins typically sell for around $1 or $2. But unknown to most collectors, a small number of pieces were struck with an unusual set of die characteristics, creating what would become the legendary 1996 P large date variety. Coin trackers, coinvaluechecker.com. Now, what exactly makes this 1996 P large date so special? If you look at a standard 1996 Kennedy half-dollar, you'll see that the date numerals are proportioned in a certain way, thinner, with specific spacing between the digits. On the large date variety, the numerals are noticeably bolder and taller, with subtle but distinctive differences in the shapes of the 9, 6, and P. To the untrained eye, these differences might seem minor, but to variety specialists and die experts, they represent a totally separate striking event, an unintentional variation in the die setup that only a tiny number of coins ever received. For years after 1996, this variety went completely unnoticed. Most examples that survived did so in pocket change, heavily circulated, worn, and scratched from everyday use. And because no major coin guide listed this variety, most collectors didn't even know to look for it. But as modern technology, high-resolution photography, online marketplaces, and global auction databases expanded, a few sharp-eyed hobbyists began to spot consistent patterns in certain 1996 P pieces that didn't match the standard variety. They started comparing notes, examining die markers, and soon the word began to spread in niche corners of the coin collecting community. As interest in this variety grew, so did the value of the rare pieces that confirm the diagnostic features. What makes the rise of this coin especially unusual is that even circulated examples in fine condition, coins with scratches, rim nicks, and worn surfaces, were selling for prices that would be unimaginable for a normal 1996 half-dollar. Normally, circulated coins that show obvious wear are worth very little, usually less than $1. But in this case, scarcity trumps condition. Collectors learned that only a handful of these large date coins were ever struck, and the survival rate in any collectible condition, even fine, is extremely low. Coin trackers, one particular auction, brought this reality into the spotlight. A certified fine condition 1996 P large date half-dollar, verified by a reputable third-party grading service and documented with detailed provenance, hammered for approximately $110,000. That price stunned nearly everyone in the numismatic world. Why? Because this wasn't a pristine mint state coin with perfect surfaces and unbroken luster. This was a circulated coin with noticeable scratches, faded relief, and the kind of wear most collectors wouldn't give a second glance. Yet because of the combination of its rarity and the dramatic story behind it, serious collectors were willing to pay 6 figures. So, how does something like this happen? The answer lies in the nature of rarity and demand. In mainstream coin collecting, rarity is king. When a coin is both truly scarce and confirmed through expert authentication, the market begins to assign value based on competitive demand, not metal content or condition alone. Coins from the 1800s or early 1900s often sell for high prices, even in worn grades, simply because so few exist. The remarkable twist here is that a modern coin, a coin minted in 1996, which most people handled regularly, can suddenly become part of that elite group simply because of a misstrike or unusual die pair that was never documented by the mint. Collectors started clashing on eBay, heritage auctions, and other major platforms. Once word of the rarity spread, anytime in 1996, P half-dollar with strong large date characteristics was offered for sale, bidders surged in. Even coins in relatively poor condition commanded significant prices because the demand far outstripped the limited supply. And when a coin finally sold near 6 figures, the story went viral in collecting forums, YouTube channels, blogs, and social media, bringing even more attention to this once overlooked variety. It's also important to note how grading played a role. Coins that sold for high prices were professionally authenticated and graded, meaning their variety identification was backed by certified experts. That certification gives buyers confidence, assuring them they are purchasing the real rare variety, not just an ordinary 1996 P half-dollar. Without that grading, collectors would be hesitant to commit large sums. Grading, in this case, became the bridge between obscurity and extraordinary value. Now, if you think you might have found one of these rare 1996 P large date half dollars, there are some key steps you should take. First, do not clean the coin. Cleaning, even gentle, can strip important surface detail and dramatically reduce value. Instead, carefully compare your coin to known diagnostic examples, ideally under magnification. Look at the proportions of the date, the shape of the numerals, and other subtle markers that distinguish the large date from the regular issue. If you suspect it's the rare variety, the next step is to submit the coin to a reputable grading service for authentication and certification. The story of this coin is a reminder that in the world of numismatics, even everyday coins can hide extraordinary surprises. Something as seemingly ordinary as a 1996 Kennedy half dollar, a coin many people didn't think twice about, can become a legendary rarity worth extraordinary sums. It's a testament to the passion of collectors, the depth of research that goes into uncovering varieties, and the unpredictable way the market assigns value.